Hi, I'm Kevin Johnson from Secure Ideas, and today I'm going to do a quick introduction to Burp Suite. Now, Burp Suite is an interception proxy. It is probably the primary tool that all of us here at Secure Ideas use when we're doing web penetration testing, we love it. Now, there are two versions. There's a free version and a commercial version. And the commercial version costs approximately $300 a year. If you're going to do this for a living or as part of your job, the commercial version is absolutely mandatory. It's not that expensive, and it adds a lot of features. Now, here is Burp. And it's a very simple interface, right? What we're looking at right now is the proxy tab. And then here is Firefox. And I've set up Firefox to use Burp as a proxy, right? So all of the traffic coming out of Firefox is going to go to Burp first before going to the absolute site. Now here we have Matilda installed on a server. It's just a target server here on my network that we're just using as an example, so that as we're doing things, we've got something basically to bang up against, right? So that we can see how Burp intercepts it and the different features we can get. By the way, Matilda, excellent project. It was started by Adrian Crenshaw, taken over by Jeremy Druin, and Jeremy is constantly releasing new versions of it. Well worth grabbing a copy, putting it on a server somewhere where you're able to practice. And he's constantly adding new functionality, new vulnerabilities, and what have you. So the very first thing I want to talk about is Burp Suite and how it works. Now, you'll notice here that you have a whole series of tabs, and all of these tabs do different things, and we move around between them as we're doing our testing. So right off the bat, we're going to start with the target tab. And as you see here, on the one side, you've got a whole bunch of sites listed, host names, domain names, what have you. Notice that some of them are black and the rest are gray. As a matter of fact, one of them is black. The black means there have been requests and responses seen. The gray just says, hey, on one of the pages you went to, we saw a link to here. We didn't go to it, you didn't visit it, you didn't click it or what have you, but we saw that link. Now, that's over here. Now, once you select something, like in this case, the host under professionalevil.com, you'll see the individual requests. And as you look, there's the host name, the method that was used, and then the URL. And you can actually see the whole thing. It tells you whether there were parameters passed, what the status code of the response was, the length of the response, and the MIME type, and some other information. And as you select one of them, for example, and I always do that, if you click the host name, it drops down that list. Click here, notice how it's highlighted, and you'll see the request. And that's the raw request, and there's the response that we saw. Now, that's all of the information, and you can do, for both of these, there are different tabs. So for example, we could just look at the headers. They're broken down there, kind of nice. We can also look at the hex, if this was a binary file coming back. We can just look at, in this case, HTML. Of course, these tabs change depending on what the response is. And then Burp will actually render the page. Now, this is not as nice necessarily as your browser may be. In this case, it did a pretty decent job, but notice we have all these little menus here that are expanded, whereas over here in Firefox, those are actually separate menus, right? And that's because the way the render is doing, it's not trying to execute JavaScript or anything else like that. It's just showing you the HTML that came back in that response. Okay, very simple stuff. And this is the target tab. You see this some. I don't spend a lot of time in the target tab, mainly because I like something a little bit better, and that's in the proxy, which we'll show you now. Now, the proxy is the heart of Burp. It's where all the traffic comes in and comes out. Now, a couple things I want you to notice. One, you have subtabs. All of these tabs have subtabs underneath them, and then you have all your options for things that you want to do, which we'll go over in a minute. You have your history, and this is actually where I spend most of the time that I'm working in Burp. Here, Intruder, and Repeater are the three places. The history is going to show you, in the order the requests were made, all of the requests and responses. Whereas in the Target tab, it's just showing you some of them. For example, notice here we're actually filtering out anything with a 400. We're filtering out images, cascading style sheets, and other binary files, right? So those are just not being shown. So you come over here and you'll actually see everything. And while some people would say, well, why would I want to see images, or why would I want to see cascading style sheets in JavaScript? Well, let's say you're doing a test. I just did one recently where I found that the CAPTCHA is an image, but it's actually being loaded from a dynamic file. So even though it says captcha.jpg or something like that, it's actually a PHP file in the case of this one app, that it was accepting inputs and then generating that image on the fly. And because of that, we were able to actually find some vulnerabilities. So seeing those there, that's kind of nice, right? Now the other thing I want to have you notice is this intercept is on. Now, you can turn this off. As a matter of fact, I spend most of my time with this off. But one of the things I find is it defaults to on, and a lot of people run into a problem. Let's come back over here to Firefox real quick. And I'm just going to pick SQL injection, bypass authentication, login. Now notice it says it's waiting for the site, right? That's because over here in Burp, you've intercepted that request. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, Kevin, of course, that's obvious. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. Yeah, but for some reason, every time I work with people, every time I sit in class or whatever, people forget to turn that off, and then they sit here and they're like, hey, why is the browser not doing anything? It's because you have to forward that request, right? Notice in the background, the page loaded. Okay, now if there were any other resources that had to be loaded, they would have been intercepted as well, and you'd have to forward each of them as they go. Now, one of the things you're able to do there is you actually say, hey, okay, Kevin and password, right? And we click login. Notice it's still waiting. Hey, wait a minute. There is my request, right? Again, not that big a deal, but hey, tick, or 1 = 1, semicolon, dash, whatever, right? And I say forward. I'm going to turn off interception just so I can get rid of it. And hey, wait a minute. We just got an error, right? Failure is always an option. Here's a whole bunch of information. Don't you which real websites would give you this much information? Sometimes they do, but not very often. And then bad username or password. Okay, interesting. No big deal. I'm just showing you how you can intercept the different requests. And by the way, I didn't expect that attack to actually do anything. In this case, I was just messing around, right? So we've got that. Let's flip back over here to Burp, right? Now you've got the spider tab, and the spider tab is where you're telling Burp, please crawl this website. And one of the things you have to be careful of is that it will crawl the entire website. So let's look at this site for an example. Notice here where it says toggle security, toggle hints, reset the database. That's probably not something I want to do in the middle of me testing this thing, right? So what we would have to do is come into the spider and tell it not to spider certain things. Another thing that you could do is just say, hey, just spider things in scope, right? And you can control what is in scope, okay? Now, we have the scanner. Now, the scanner, this is part of the commercial version, and this is not in the free version. And what it is it's a passive and active scanner. It actually checks the website, looks at the traffic, everything else like that, to determine if there are security holes. The passive scanner is just looking at the traffic, going back and forth, and the active scanner is actually doing attacks. It works pretty well. It's a simple scanner, right? A lot of different options, and we'll dig into each of these. My goal is to actually record videos for each of these tabs. We have the intruder, which is where we do our fuzzing. And all you would do is come over here and say, hey, this request right here, send to intruder, right? And in intruder, now we have the request. And notice these, I don't know what to call them. I always call them squigglies. They're section markers. Notice how they've highlighted each of the parameters that you can fuzz. And that's where you would do that, okay? We also have the repeater. I like the repeater. What you're able to do here is you're actually able to repeat a request. So here was that request we did before. Hit go. Look at that. We got the response back. And we can come in here, we can mess around. We can say things like, well, you know what? Let's try a hash mark instead of a double dash. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there. And then say go. Okay. Well, we got a 302. Set cookie username equals admin, UID equals 1. Wait a minute, did we just get logged in? Actually, yeah, we did, of course, right? And for the people who don't know, the reason the one didn't work and this one did is because I changed the comment string, that dash dash, over to a hash mark. The MySQL database in the back end doesn't pay attention to dash dash, but it does use the hash mark as a comment sign. So that's just the reason that was different, right? And so we were able to try different things out. In this case, we're going to keep moving on because we'll play with this kind of stuff. Again, remember, just like in the target tab, you have your different, here's the parameters, here's the headers. Hey, wait a minute, there's the rendering, right? So we've got all of the different types of access to those features. We have our sequencer. This is where we're going to actually capture traffic, maybe session cookies, maybe random file names, things like that, to see if there's something predictable about that kind of stuff. We have our decoder, which is where we can actually encode or decode pieces of information from the site. For example, let's say you have a site that sends an MD5 hash down as a value for a cookie, and you think, hey, you know, I bet you that's my username, MD5 hashed. Well, throw your username in over here, and then say, I'm sorry, not decode, encode as, and there's all the encodings, or you can actually hash. In the case of the example I just gave, MD5. Well, there's your MD5 hash, 9D, 5E, 3E, CC, CD, EB. And I'm not going to read this whole thing, right? We also have the diff program. I have trouble saying this word, and lots of people laugh at me. And this is where you're actually comparing either two requests or two responses, or a request and a response. And then we have the extenders where we can add extensions. For example, I have loaded here a really nice extension that actually adds OAuth message signing to our requests and our requests coming out of the tool. I'm actually writing a blog post on how to use this extension. I did not write this extension, and for the life of me, I can't remember the guy's name who did. And of course, we also have to point out the fact that when I created the directory that I put this in, I didn't know how to spell extension, added an extra R there. You have various options for the tool, how to build up the listeners, things like that. And then, of course, the alerts tab, which will actually show you some any things that Burp felt needed to be logged. So, for example, here, hey, we started up a proxy service on 8080, which is the default port that Burp listens on. So, like I said, this is a quick and dirty introduction to Burp. We're going to dig into the individual tabs and everything else like that. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that you also try out Burp. It's a great interception proxy, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to send me an email at kevin@securideas.com. Enjoy yourself, and thank you very much.